said a word entitlement. Can you explain that briefly, just so the audience understand what that means?
So let's take a raw piece of land in or near town that a developer would want to develop on. They can't just buy that land and start building. Usually they have, and I'm just going to put a timeline on it. Let's say 18 months worth of permitting, worth of meeting with city planners, worth, meeting with different project heads, where you're going to get all of the approvals, all of the necessary paperwork out of the way in order to build, in order to develop that. So it's a lengthy process. It can be an expensive process. So there is a niche market there where some home builders, if you will, they like the idea and they will pay more for entitled land. They'll come in and they'll buy it so that they don't have to worry with that. They'll come in and buy it and begin building immediately, as opposed to buying land and pouring money into it where it may not get approved for what they want to do with it, right? So if you can get all of those approvals from the county, from the city, from the mud districts, et cetera, to get all of that out of the way, that's of tremendous value to them. That's what I would call an entitlement process. I know that's kind of vague on that, but each place is going to be a little bit different as to what approvals you're going to need.
That's amazing. I think you guys are, not only you have big heart, but you also so smart. And
it's a whole team. It's not just us.
And we're not telling you all of our mistakes either. We're not talking about that.
We're not there yet. We're gonna talk about it.
Perfect. Great.
Okay, so let's say you got the land already. You stake out. You're looking for buyers, right? And
Right.
now they come, and you have to do the vetting process, like you mentioned earlier. Do you guys do 30 years no or 10 years no? Do you, is it case by case, or do you really trying to stick to a certain terms and trying to do that across the board?
Let's go with averages first, and then we'll talk about a range.
Okay.
Most of our notes are a 15-year term. Most of them start around 10% on the written face interest rate on that note. We've done some longer, 20-year term plus, that are generally having a higher interest rate. Mm-hmm. We also have done some lower. We've done some 5-year notes here recently, and with a lower interest rate still. So there is some variance, but I would say 80% plus of our notes are going to be that 10% 15-year term.
Okay.
And a lot's going to depend on, again, their debt to income ratio. Maybe what their credit score looks like, what their amount down they're willing to put down on that property. So it can vary of possibly the term of how long we go, as well as then the interest rate on that.
I was going to say one other thing on the size of the notes, what they end up being. We have some in Arkansas, like she mentioned, a little bit smaller. These are going to be $35,000 to $60,000 notes.
Yeah.
And then we have most of our Texas notes go from around 90,000 up to 350, 400,000 in size. I would say the average is probably right around a $200,000 note, though.
Yeah, because those small ones, they're going to have a hard time getting a loan anyway, right, on those smaller price point. So this land you buy, do you leverage? And if you leverage, what is whoever you borrow the money from, you apparently would have to disclose? Is that a wrap then?
No, we'll have a partial release. So we'll borrow funds to purchase the land, once again, whether it be hard money or private lenders. And then as each piece of the property, each tract is sold, we'll do a partial release on that, so that the note is, I guess you'd call it free and clear, and somebody will purchase a lender's policy, so that when we sell that note to somebody, we have a lender's policy in place that shows that is they're going to have they're going to have first lien position free and clear. So we do partial releases as we sell out those.
And eventually, though, they'll pay off, or once they finish building, they'll refi and pay you guys off, right?
Yeah, that's basically
Varies.
that's basically the exit. There is they are either going to pay it off over 15 years and they're going to pay the interest that is stated there, or they're going to refinance, sell the property, move, and at any time they can do that. And what the investor gets is 10% on their money from however long they own that. If it's 6 months or 6 years, they're going to get 10% on their money, and when they buy them out, or when they pay it off early, or when they refinance it or sell the property, they'll receive 100% of their principal balance back as well. So
It's typically like
just
a mortgage. as
just like a
well.
single family home is going to get refinanced or sold after 5 or 7 years, 5 to 8 years, it's going to be the same thing on ours.
Yeah, and there are life things that happen where there might be a death, there might be a divorce, there might be, certain situation that happens. So I would say typically see the note may not go to the full 15 years. It may only for 7 or 8 years. But what's great is that we always like to tell people is that we'd rather have the front end of the note and hold that as opposed to the back end of the note.
Let me kind of go into that really quick. As far as what Crystal just mentioned on what happens if a refinance is done 18 months into the note, or they pay it off 18 months into the note, sometimes we've had investors kind of get bummed out where they're like, oh, I just got my money back, or oh, my note's over with. And I totally understand that. But banks love it when they get paid off early, because they're going to take those same funds and they're going to roll it into another note. And once again, when we're talking about amortized notes, they'd much rather have the first 18 months of a note or the first 5 years of a note than the last 18 months or the last 5 years of the note. So you start over receiving nearly all interest and very little principal pay down.